the key question was, what role will innovation play in the transition in post-carbon mobility in Vienna? Just a quick reminder that innovation is not always dealing with technical developments. It's just, if creativity is the development of new ideas, then to be innovative is to put these ideas into real implementation. And without creativity, there's no science, and without science, no innovation. I am from the public utilities company, which is called Wiener Stadtwerke. It's a very big one. We have two main topics we're focusing on. It's energy and mobility. I'm in the mobility cluster. We have there Wiener Linien, you might know, Wipak and Wiener Lokalbahnen, those are the big ones. And I'm working at a very small, in a very small company, which is called Neue Urbane Mobilität Wien GmbH. We have three areas we're focusing on: a mobility cluster and science, e-mobility and innovation, so I will talk about some e-mobility projects, and multimodal services and innovation. That's also something I will talk about. I'm the third person who is bringing up the numbers, so I will not tell them. You already know. Okay, so let's jump right into a project which was very important for us, and I think also will be important in the near future, because it's focusing on this one pillar Harald Frey also mentioned, multimodality, so connecting different modes of transport together. In this case, using new technologies like the smartphones for doing so. It was a research project which was finished in May this year. It was called SMILE. And the main idea was to build up a platform to combine different modes of transport and to make it possible that you can get the information, do the registration, the booking and the payment via one device, via one app. I don't know if some of you know Quando, for example, which is mainly getting information for the public transport system in Vienna, and this was the further development. You can see here that's the real interface, how it really looked like. So you get your routing for the different transport modes, and then you could choose which one to take. Why do we think that this is important? Because somehow this is a new network structure. It's not physical built infrastructure out there, but it's digital built network infrastructure. And it should make it more easy to switch to the more environmental friendly modes, because it easily shows you the possibilities you have on your travel. As I said, it was finished in May this year. What was interesting about it is that we had 1,400 pilot users who really tried out this app and gave us feedback how it works. It was built up in a rapid prototyping way, and it was an Austrian-wide project, because we have the two biggest mobility companies in Austria in the consortium, which is Austrian Federal Railways and Wiener Linien. But you can see there were also partners from the rest of Austria, like Linz AG and so on. SMILE was somehow, I forgot to mention that there also was an evaluation conducted from Technical University of Vienna, because we also wanted to know if a project or an app, a platform like SMILE, could really change or influence mobility behavior. And the outcome was that I think 48% stated that they really use public transport more often when they use SMILE, and 21% said that they use the car less. So it seems to have an influence on routing and on mode choice. SMILE somehow was a starting point for several other projects we are conducting now in Neumo. The first one, Wienmobil 2.0, will be the live project, which is really for the suitable for the mass. So it will be SMILE in real terms, let's say so. It is driven by Wiener Linien. It is focusing on urban areas. So this time we're not focusing on the whole Austria, but on urban areas. And it will be, from the functionalities, it will be the same. So multimodal information, reservation, booking, and payment for different modes of transport in an urban context. Then there is something for companies to organize mobility within companies. It's called BMM, Betriebliches Mobilitätsmanagement. It's focusing on the Viennese companies, and it's linked to pooling vehicles, car sharing, taxi, and public transport. And the third one is somehow also a further development of SMILE, but in the rapid prototyping way. It's called Beam Beta. The idea is to develop, to further develop this SMILE platform, but with the community, with test users, with interested citizens of Vienna. We are introducing it to the public in autumn for a bigger public, and now with the former pilot users of SMILE in July. So that was somehow the stuff we are doing on multimodality, multimodal platforms, and so on. Now I want to say something about our e-mobility project, e-mobility region of Vienna. I think the most important thing, which is very different from other cities, is that we see e-mobility just as a component which is important for environmental friendly modes, but there is no one-on-one change from fossil cars to electric cars, and there is no renaissance of the own car in the city. For example, in Oslo, they really pushed electric mobility, and Vienna, the idea is that there are some aspects and some components where electrical cars are fitting quite well, but it shouldn't be like every car is substituted to electric cars. So e-mobility is seen really as under the premise of supporting the Viennese goals of environmental friendly mobility. There was one project, it's still going on, where we realized 175 e-cars. The targets were corporate fleets. 175 might not seem much, but in the whole area of Vienna there are 350 electrical cars right now, so it's, in this sense, it's not nothing. We realized charging points, and the energy is coming to 100% out of renewables. One side product of the e-mobility region was the mobility card, which is actually now a product of Wiener Linien where you can buy it. It's also combining different modes of transport, but not in the app sense or in the platform sense, but with a card. Here's just some pictures of the electrical cars. I think you know how they look like. A very interesting thing which I would like to mention is that also realized within the Viennese e-mobility region are the electrical buses from Wiener Linien. They are somehow a real invention because they were developed by Rampini and Siemens together. They are 100% emission free. Also air conditioning and heating is fully electric. And the interesting thing is that I think right now they are the only ones which are charged by the 600 volt direct current from the tramway. So at the terminal station they are connecting to the tramway, and that's how they get charged. It takes 15 minutes to charge them. So to run the line, you need 2 to 3 buses in addition to keep up the schedule. And the inner city districts lines 2A and 3A are run with these electrical buses now. The newest project we were starting in April is the e-taxi project. It is also based within this Vienna e-mobility region. At the beginning, there are 10 charging stations for e-taxis realized, and in the first step, 60 to 80 pure electrical cars, which will be realized just for taxis. And then there are 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. In the end, if everything works quite well, there will be 250 electrical taxis realized. If that's going well, then it will be 5% of all taxis running in Vienna. It's also one of the biggest e-taxi projects in the world, actually, with these numbers. As you can see, also a lot of partners within the city, and total cost for the infrastructure quite high, with nearly 10 million. That is it, more or less. At the end, I just want to say that all the better the structures for the environmental friendly modes, that is basically what the other speakers were already saying, the better, the more effective can these projects be who are trying to connect the different modes of transport. So all the ideas of bringing the transport modes together and to support this idea of multimodality is just working if the infrastructure is built up for that. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, also for enduring the heat. By the way, a small remark, I wanted didn't want to make in the beginning, but we are also thinking of this in a wider context of climate change. And today and tomorrow and next week there will be what you call tropical days and tropical nights. So a tropical night is a nice night where the temperature doesn't drop below 30 degrees. And the number of tropical nights also in Vienna is going to increase over the next years. So we have to just think how we retrofit a slow evolving organism like the city to climate change. And of course, changing a mobility system is a great chance for that. So is there any question immediately? Yes?
What's your perception of the future of e-mobility, e-cars? Is it going to really develop? Like in Austria, we do have 0.07 electric cars from all cars. So what's going to happen with the e-mobility? Like all over the world, probably.
All over the world.
Is it a real?
I have a clear idea of how it will work in Vienna, for example. I think when we reach the 2030 targets, where we have just 20% of private motorized transport, then probably a big share of those will be electrical cars, I think. There are a lot of projects going on also to organize goods transport with electrical cars, for example, just in the inner city districts. I think there is a big capacity for that, but that's it. I'm not seeing like thousands of electrical cars running around, not even in Austria. My perception, I don't know. It's just a change of type of the, how do you call it? It's no Antriebsstrangänderung. It's still a car, you know. It's just a change of how you run it, but it's still a car.
Okay, just ask you about the implementation of IT or this information technology. How much is the impact of efficiency, or that you can, by implementing information technology, that you can increase from the existing infrastructure? Do you have some kind of it's quite difficult to.
As I said, we know a little bit about what these test users were doing and how they were using it, and whether their behavior changed a little bit. But the thing is, as I said in the last slide, maybe I wasn't quite clear. You can just connect stuff which is already there. So in Vienna, if you have a transport system which is working quite well in the sense of the eco modes, walking, cycling, public transport, there is a huge potential that you can easily and good connect this together or make it even more easy to use it. If you have other cities where you have basically just cars running around and nothing else, some app like Smile will not solve any problem. So there must be something to be connected to. Otherwise, it's just the technology which is not really working. But I can't give you any numbers. So.
Well, as I understood, there are goals for motorized individual transport, and that this should be less in the future. And there are goals for public transport, that this should be more. And there is this other thing like taxis, which are somewhere in between, right? Yeah. So it's like a semi-public transport, but privately owned, privately operated. And like when I think ahead in the future, like 10 years, maybe there are not only electric cars, but also the cars that drive on their own, like autonomous driving cars. And are there any, like, what do you think about that? Like about like a taxi service that is like even more private, because maybe then it's also cheaper. Would that be something desirable? And like, or are there any plans about the taxi? The share of taxis in general, is it desirable that there will be more or less?
Well, for me, the taxis also count to private motorized transport. Mm-hmm. Either way, yeah. And so in my vision of the future, or not my vision, in my perception of the future, this will be within these 15 or 20%. But still, if they are electrical and if they're easy and good to use, it is nice to have them, as Hermann Knoflacher also said, for elderly people, for if you don't know, have to transport something, what else? Yeah. But I count them within private motorized transport still. About the automated cars, it is a topic which is pushed very much by automobile industry, of course. I read an interesting study about Lisbon, for example, where they modeled that they can replace nearly the whole public transport with these automated cars, and they make it shareable. Of course, this is like a horror scenario for Wiener Stadtwerke, like us, but because I think it will not be suitable for keeping up the good living qualities in the city. I mean, they will be automated, but they still consume space. They still need road space. They still need to be parked somewhere. So I don't think that this is a big solution also.
But the parking is like, now that the car parks 23 hours and 1 hour it's driving. But if these cars are driving, let's say, 20 hours per day, so you don't need so much space, and that's the car industry's argument. So this is something we should probably also think about. How can we develop, or how can we cope with this?
Yeah, but in my vision, still these 15% can be also self-automated or shared. But still, I want to have less cars in the city running around. It stays the same. It's always just a technological further development, but not really like solving. Yeah.
Some other remark. We have like 2 minutes. I heard about this study done with these self-driving cars that they actually increase trips. And when I have the experts here, let's briefly debunk it. Is there because the basic idea behind it is, of course, you order a car somewhere and you make a trip, but then the car, meanwhile, looking for another customer, so to say, goes somewhere in the city. So there's a lot of empty trips with these self-driving cars. Is this like? Actually,
this is one of the outcomes in this study too. So they're driving around more because they're driving from one customer to another, and in the meantime, they are redistributing themselves in the city.
Okay.
More cars driving around.
Just as it is at the mobility sector, which means I come from the southeast of Austria, where big companies like Magna are located, and half of the area works at the car companies and so on. And you know, it's like that. If everyone goes into the direction of public transport, we have to transform the whole economical system of our cities and areas. And for example, also on the energy market sector, the state of Austria makes a lot of money with taxes out of natural resources. So if we switch into 100% renewable, we need to have something in between for the transformation process. You know, you can't go from 0 to 100. You need something in between, and this is very, very, very complicated.
I have a question. What I also asked you on the phone already. Do you have 3-4 concept ideas? What are like far-reaching technological developments? What our designers could try out? Kind of like what Wiener Stadtwerke has like in the drawer, but didn't release yet.
To be honest, no, I don't. I think you really should focus on the image of how you want a city to look like, and not on. As I said, I cannot make any prognosis about how many cars are running around in electric driven. I cannot make any prognosis about automated cars. I can't. If anybody else can, okay, but no.
Okay, I'm afraid I have to. Yeah.
Well, about the energy part, Stefan already explained. It's doable. I mean, to have this.
As I pointed out before, I think the energy system which will be much more decentralized, and it's also a topic of prosumerism and sharing economy, and a lot of services which will come along. I don't have, I'm not sure which solutions will also come up. It's very complex, and which it's also a question of the market, which and of innovation which will get off. From my point of view, we will need less pipelines and more electricity grids. But there are no certain numbers. When you ask an old traditional energy supply, he says we need a lot of huge grids to bring a lot of energy over it, because it was his job to sell a lot of energy. In future time, it should be the market should be to sell solutions, services. And it's not always depending on how much energy is floating over. Maybe the grids is not needed anymore, or a very less grids, because it's very decentralized. But I also can make can look in the future how it will be.